Hello everybody and welcome to the RSN's Information Day. This is the Future Tutors presentation and we welcome you from wherever you are around the world. Now, Kelley Aldridge, who is the Future Tutors course leader, is actually teaching today, which is great. And we therefore have a recording that she has done prior to today, presenting the Future Tutors programme to you. After the presentation by Kelley, we will then go over to Anne Butcher, who is the head of studio and of education, who will then bring you around the studio and show you a bit about the commissions, bespoke, restoration, conservation pieces that the Future Tutors work on when they do their studio module. So without further ado, I shall put on the video. It'll last about 20 minutes, then we'll have Q&A. So at the bottom of the screen, you'll see Q&A, and you will be able to ask questions during that time, which I'll then pose to Anne once the video is over. So sit back and hopefully you'll learn a fair bit now about the Future Tutors programme at the Royal School of Needlework. Thank you. I shall share the screen now.
Welcome to the Future Tutor program at the Royal School of Needlework. My name is Kelley Aldridge and I am the program coordinator. I hope to share with you over the next 15 minutes or so some information about the course, how it started, what our graduates are doing now, and to show you some of their amazing work. I'll tell you a little bit about the funding for the course and the fees and expenses, and then what to do if you are interested in applying. There are two key driving forces behind the establishment of the RSN in 1872. One of those is the arts and crafts movement, which was founded by William Morris as a challenge to the mechanization of artisan skills as part of the Industrial Revolution. Machine printing and stitching meant more people could afford such goods, but the standard of the work was low, and there was a real danger of losing the traditional hand skills forever. The second driving force was the plight of impoverished gentlewomen, daughters of gentlemen within society. These women were unable to support themselves financially in a respectable way other than getting married, having work as a paid companion, or as a governess. If you think of the Bennet sisters in Pride and Prejudice or the Dashwood women in Sense and Sensibility, you will get a feel for their predicament, the difficulty that they had in providing for themselves if they either didn't marry into money or didn't have family members who would provide for them. So the opportunity to work in a genteel occupation with royal patronage was an important new opportunity. And you did have to be a gentlewoman to be accepted. The school's activities evolved over time as society changed. Education in traditional skills became formalized as an apprenticeship in 1960, and then more recently as a term-based fee-paying program called the Future Tutor program. The current second years will graduate on the 10th anniversary of the founding of the FTP, and we're very proud of them. So now a little bit of information about the program itself. Students are taught for their first 2 years in technical stitch. So this is hand embroidery, and there are various techniques to be covered. You tend to focus on the basic aspects of most of the techniques, but not all, in your first year. And then in your second year, there are a couple of new techniques that you cover, but then several of the second year techniques build on what you've learned in your first year, and you tackle the technique in a finer, more advanced and complex way. After your first and second year, you move from the classroom to the studio, and you spend almost the entirety of your third year learning the additional skills that are needed as a professional embroiderer and as a member of the studio team, which includes conservation, restoration, and work on any commissions that come through the door, which are many and varied. As part of your 3-year program, you will also be given a 1-week basic teaching skills program, which we run in affiliation with Kingston College. We run it in alternate years, so you would either get it in your second year or your third year. Also, as part of your program, you will receive a design and art instruction that is tailored to what we do as professional hand embroiderers. There is an online portal for students and tutors. At the moment, it is based in Google. So there's a Google Calendar and there is Google Drive. And between the two, you're able to access all the course information as well as the most up-to-date schedule. We've introduced something we call the journey towards teaching. And this reflects our approach to gradually exposing our students to more and more teaching activities, from the most basic aspect, which is meet and greet and being on hand to help the tutor, up to providing designs of your own as day class samples so that you're able to run your own classes and fly solo as a tutor once you've graduated. We're very lucky to be home to an amazing collection of vintage textiles, and we make the most of that by sitting in collection talks with Susan K. Williams, and we're able to see a portion of our wonderful collection depending on which technique or theme she's covering at the time. In addition to all of this, we have also built a tailored business skills program for our undergraduates, because we accept that the majority of our graduates of the FTP are going to be self-employed freelance professionals, and work at the RSN will form only a part of their activities. And so it's only fair that as part of the training that we give you, we also help you as much as we can to stand on your own 2 feet from the day after you graduate. That's the essence of the program. Before I go on to talk about our graduates and what to do next, I think it's time to show you some of the most beautiful work that our recent graduates have done. The very first technique that you'll cover as a first year is Jacobean crewel work, which is essentially a stitch sampler, about 30 different stitches worked in crewel wool on linen twill. You learn a lot about standard working practices when you start your Jacobean crewel work, and we always are impressed with the amazing pieces that come out of these very first designs of our first years. In your first year as well, you also tackle silk shading. There are 3 projects that you do over the 2 years, but only one in your first year, and it is your botanical, which is either a flower or a fruit or a vegetable. And part of your art training is about observational drawing skills, because you're certainly going to need to be practicing them when you're doing your silk shading. Observational skills also come in handy when you're doing your shaded black work, which is a counted technique as opposed to a freestyle. But you have to really be able to see all the tonal differences from the very lightest highlights to the very darkest shadows in order to create something that is essentially black and white photography in stitch. We believe in providing our students with set designs when it is a useful approach to a complicated technique. And so your basic gold work in your first year is based on a design of the 3 gold symbols. And you deliberately leave it part worked so that you can see the very important underlying structure of the different approaches to padding and to the 3-dimensional work in the gold. You also have fun with counted work on canvas. You work on mixed stitches on a mono canvas where you have a variety of threads and a variety of stitches. And the point to this is to be able to exploit the different properties of different threads and different types of stitches so that you get a really unique interpretation of your image. You then go on to canvas shading. And again, observational skills are very important here. The main part of this is worked in just one stitch, although you can work a different stitch for the background. And the idea here is that you recreate a 3-dimensional piece with just one kind of stitch, and it's all about your use of color. Observational skills and silk shading keep coming back. Silk Shaded Animal is your 2nd year piece. And once you've gained an understanding of the technique at its most basic, you start to understand how to bend the rules and create texture as well as tone in your choice of an animal. And we get dogs, cats, birds, fish, all manner of animals we've had in the past, and they're always great fun to do and really appreciated by members of the public as well. Once you've done your basic gold in your 3 symbols in year 1, you move on to a more complex and demanding piece of gold work in your 2nd year, which we refer to as coronation gold. It's called that because it's the technique that is employed when creating the coronation robes of state for the newly crowned monarch. The RSN has in recent history worked not only the queens, but the queen mothers before her. And there are aspects of this technique that are very particular to itself. And this is an opportunity for you to work a piece that will stand you in good stead for whenever the school is called upon to work the next coronation robe of state. Your 3rd and final silk shaded project is a figure. The technique is known as tapestry shading, although it is definitely not tapestry. And it differs from the flower and the animal in that all of the stitches are vertical. They all have the same direction, apart from the hair and potentially little embellishments. But as far as the face, the garment, the skin, it's all stitched vertically. And the challenge is to create a lifelike, realistic interpretation of a figure with drapery and folds and layers of cloth with purely color and stitch length. A favorite technique of second years is the box project. This project is used to help students understand about three-dimensional construction with just needle and thread, card, and fabric. Within this project, all types of construction are covered, including drawers, doors, hinges, secret compartments, covers, and fixtures and fittings. Historically, boxes were referred to as caskets, and if ever you've been in an historical building, National Trust, castle, museum that has stump work on display, it is quite often in the form of a casket. And understanding how these boxes go together allow you to create new pieces, but also repair old pieces that need a little bit of TLC. And speaking of stump work, you will in your second year work a figure that is worked in a variety of techniques, including needle lace and wired fingers and the use of all manner of materials and threads to get the effect that you want. And it's always a lot of fun to see what type of figure students choose to portray. The school is also known for a technique called both sides alike, where you have one piece of fabric and you stitch through the fabric to create the same picture on both sides. So there is no back to this technique. And it is important to know how to do this when you're receiving repair work in the form of banners or military honors. And it is such a unique type of embroidery that it's great fun to be able to learn it and to work a spray such as this set design. So that's just a whistle-stop tour of some of the techniques that you would be doing within your first and second year. Once you've graduated, there are all sorts of opportunities for you within the RSN, but it's important to reiterate that all graduate tutors are self-employed freelance artisans who each have their own independent businesses. The RSN is one of their clients, and many are also kept busy with independent teaching, publishing, designing and making, blogging, and online sales. With the RSN, we have a broad program of day classes. Traditionally, these are in Hampton Court and our satellites in Bristol, Dublin, Durham, Exeter, Glasgow, Rugby, Toronto, and Williamsburg. We also have certificate and diploma rolling dates. So throughout the term, 7 days a week, we run certificate and diploma for members of the public. We also have intensive week-long blocks that a lot of overseas students like to attend because it means that they're able to focus on their work exclusively, and they find it very rewarding. We also facilitate bespoke private bookings for individuals and for groups. And many of our graduates return to work in the studio on repair, restore, and new commission work. So the combination of the two can keep you as busy as you would like to be. finances with this program are slightly different than, for example, a degree, because we are not government funded. We receive no support. So as of September 2020, the annual fee for the 3-year program is £11,500, and there is a materials charge of £600, which is split out over the first 2 years. As I say, we do not receive any government support, and we rely on the generosity of RSN friends and sponsors, Legacies, which brought this year's annual fee for UK students down to £6,500. But there is no guarantee that that happens year on year. We also receive funding for specific bursaries, and you can find out more about these by visiting the FTP page on the RSN website. If you're interested, here's what you need to do next. You need to go online to the Future Tutor page on the RSN website and click on the link that takes you to the application. Deadline for applications is May 1st, 2021. Interviews will be conducted over 2 weeks, commencing May 10th and May 17th, 2021, and offers will be sent out on May 28th, 2021. I hope you found this presentation inspiring and informative, and if you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to get in touch, and we'll do our best to answer them.
So I hope that that's encouraged you to think a lot more about the Future Tutors programme and really the variety of techniques and exciting things that you would get up to during the 3-year course. During that presentation, Anne, we had a couple of questions come in, which I think will be relevant to everybody who's on this webinar. So Fola asks, do you still have to learn the basic stitches if you've done your certificate and diploma course?
That's a very good question, Fola. Yes, I'm afraid you do have to start from the beginning again. We would push you even further than we do on the certificate course. We would give you additional stitches to learn and different techniques. We would also have a look at what you had covered in your certificate course and address any areas that may not have received sufficient marks while you were doing your certificate course. And what we also do is, while you're doing those techniques, we're also feeding in art skills and contextual study skills and other areas of teaching practice and so forth. So it is more of an all-round course. So unfortunately, yes, you would have to start from the beginning again.
Okay, thank you. And another one here from Rita. What is the difference between the Future Tutors programme and the 3-year degree course, please?
So the Future Tutor programme is very much technical led. It is all about the technique, very heavily so. With the degree course, you have the contextual studies, the work placements, the art side as well. You don't cover so many techniques. So you may cover maybe 5 techniques in a year, but not so far, because we ask you to push the boundaries of the basics that you learn. So with the Future Tutor programme, you will learn as many techniques as we can squeeze into with every moment of time we have, but within each of those techniques, we will give you as much technical information that we can give you, because ultimately what you will be doing is going out to teach other people. So we have to give you as much information as we can.
Great, and just another little question from Rita, should there be any other international people on this webinar? I recently studied a lace course in Hong Kong, And does the FTP program welcome international students?
We do welcome international students. There is obviously issues with visas, and unfortunately we can only run the FTP course here in Hampton Court Palace. So an overseas student would need to have a look into any visa issues their end and see what the situation is for them. That's
Okay.
do that at the moment.
Okay, so this is from Rebecca. Do you still have to do the 1-week teacher training if you're a teacher who holds a PGCE in post 16 deliver?
No, you don't. No, you don't at all.
Okay, great. And on what basis do you choose who gets a place on the course? So I guess you need to go through the whole interview process. Is there a presentation that's involved in that? What kind of interview process is involved in those dates that Kelley gave?
So we have a two-prong approach, basically. So we will have a group day. So any of the interviewees are invited to attend as a group, and we will ask you to bring a portfolio with you. And at some point through that day, you will be asked to talk about one of the items in your portfolio, one that's particularly special to you, or something that you want to share with the others. We will also give you some practical skills on that day. So we will actually teach you a stitch or a process to see how you get on. And then from those group sessions, we will pull out ones that we will interview individually. And again, on those days, we would require a portfolio. Now, I know obviously there's lots of questions as to what the portfolio should hold. So we just ask for a selection of pieces. It doesn't have to all be stitched. It could be drawing, it could be paint, it could be a variety of things. It just shows us an aptitude and whether you have an attention to detail and all of those additional skills. Because for this course, we're not just looking for embroidery skills, but obviously skills for communication and for delivering teaching and learning to adults and others.
Yes, so at the end of it all, Sasha asks, do you receive a formal qualification? Well, yes.
Well, the FTP is not accredited, as we've explained. However, anybody that has been through the training at the Royal School of Needlework, whether it was apprentices in the past or our current FTPs, it is a training that is recognised around the world. And anybody who sees that you have had your 3-year training here will know the multitude of skills that you have, and it is accepted within the textile industry all over the world.
And how many days do you physically need to be at Hampton Court Palace, and how much work is there involved in the course? Well, that's quite a big question.
There's a lot of work involved with the course. You are physically on site, although we're doing blended learning at the moment, obviously with the restrictions that there are. So we are doing a combination of on-site and online learning. But in normal circumstances, you would be on site 3 days a week. That also goes for when you're down in the studio as well. Teaching is from 10 till 4. And you will, out of those 3 days, you will have 2 days of teaching and 1 day of work on own. So then you are expected the rest of the week, and that could be 2 days or even all 4 of them, that you are expected to do homework and work on own. So you will be set homework to achieve before the next lesson in order for you to continue. It is a very heavy course. There is a lot of stitching and there is a lot of homework. So that has to be borne in mind too.
Yes, I think that kind of crosses over probably into Michelle's question. Is it possible to complete this course part-time, and how is this done?
Not possibly, no.
Okay, and right, so this is a nice question from Jane. Anne mentioned contextual studies on the degree. Is there any element of that on the FTP course, or any possibility to explore that?
Absolutely, there's certainly possibilities to explore that. With every technique that you do, we ask you to put together a folder showing diagrams and stitch plans and so forth, because they then become a teaching tool when you go out to teach. So we encourage that right from the beginning. So it is always worth putting in history, anything that you can research and find out. Our individual tutors, when you come to each of the subjects, will give you an underlying background of some of the history to that particular technique that they're teaching. So you will get a little bit of that fed in. What we don't have time for on the course is formal lectures, but it doesn't stop you taking time to research yourselves.
Great. And then how much freelance work do you get from the RSN when you graduate? That's from Sasha.
Obviously, it's difficult to say. We will always arrange classes, so we would normally do them a full year in advance. At the moment, we're just working term at advance, but we would ensure that our graduating FTs in the summer know that they have some teaching with us in the upcoming year through all 3 terms. We will send them and feed them work wherever we can, because we do bespoke one-off classes as well, and we also do partnerships. So it could be that there is a museum that would like a class in their area where they're living or where they've moved back to. So we try and link there. Studio-wise is very up and down, as a lot of businesses now. So if we can give you work, we will. But at the moment, it's not guaranteed with the circumstances that we're going through at the moment.
Yes, of course. All right, and before, let's just take one last question from Margarita. Do you know how many students you'll take in September 2021?
Okay, well, our maximum is 6. We cannot take any more than 6 in each year group. But what we do not do is take for the sake of meeting that 6 criteria. So if we, out of our interviewees, decide to only take 2 or 3, that's what we will do. But 6 is the absolute max.
Okay, thank you. Just quickly, sorry about this. Rebecca, who asked the previous question about part-time learning, she then has added on, is it possible to manage the course by living part-time near Hampton Court and then return home for the other 4 days when you're not in Hampton Court? Or is it advisable to arrange accommodation near Hampton Court for the full working week?
It is possible. The only thing you need to bear in mind is we like to give you the opportunities to experience teaching right from the year 1. So we would send you off to a show to shadow on the learning curves for something like that. So we would build up your teaching experience through the 3 years as well. Now, often that teaching will be at weekends. So perhaps that is something that you would need to consider maybe for the 2nd year more so than for the 3rd year.
Yes, obviously in marketing, we get involved in events quite a lot, and we know how precious that time is when the future tutors are teaching out and about at the likes of knitting and stitching, the exhibitions with us. So that is really quite vital. All right, well, what I'll do, there will be another opportunity to ask questions. So if any of you think of any more over the next while, we are now going to go on a tour of the studio with Anne. So I will leave it over to Anne to show you the first piece, and then I shall take over and then film her going around where she speaks about all the pieces. Thank you. Go over, Anne.
Thank you. So in your 3rd year of the Future Tutor programme, you will come down into the studio. The studio is the commercial entity of the Royal School of Needlework, and we have a whole range of customers, from business, private people through to royalty. So we have a whole selection, and something that's more unusual about the school is that we cover restoration, conservation and new commissions rather than specialising in one role or other. During the 3rd year, we try and give you as much experience as we can, and we have a range of techniques that we like to cover with you, including netting, supporting, whitework repairs, transfers, all sorts of things. What we can't specify is what order we would cover those techniques in, because it often depends on what's coming through the studio. When you first come into the studio, we would use collection pieces or pieces that had been donated for training. We wouldn't put you straight onto a customer's piece, well, not within the 1st week anyway, maybe week 2. But we would supervise you every step of the way and just give you as much information as we can, and that will help you going forward when you start your own career. So I'm just going to show you the first bit, which you can see just to the side of me. So this is a Jacobean curtain, and you can just see here it's got a lighter area. Now this has already been supported once, But if I just show you where my finger is, you can see it's gone again. So this will be up for a little bit more supporting and repairing. So what we do, if I try and flip it over, you can see we put a support fabric at the back, and then we do a couching process over the top so that we can prevent those holes and those tears from getting any bigger. Now this is a curtain, and obviously light is one of the worst things to deteriorate fabric. So you can see that this is why it has gone so badly down the sides. So hopefully, once we get the next bit of supporting in, it can go back up. It's actually our door curtain here. So this is a perfect piece for an FT to start on when they first come down into the studio, because it's not a customer's piece, it belongs to ours. So I'm going to try and show you quite a wide range of pieces. So if you just, I'm just going to come round and hopefully Bryna will join me. So if we have a quick look in the cabinet here, we were very fortunate to be donated in Stumpwork mirror frame. So we're back to the Stumpwork screen. So you can see it's actually deteriorated quite badly. So something like this we would net so that we hold everything that's there. We wouldn't add to it. We would just conserve what remains. Now, this lady actually gave this to us as a training piece. It was actually given to her as her mirror to use as a teenager. So what a treat, that's all I can say. And then something completely different at the top. This has actually just been finished this week by one of our third-year FTPs, and it was a canvas piece that we have made into a spectacle case. So there's a lot more construction quite often going on in the studio, more so than when you're actually doing your techniques, hence the reason you do things like box making. Making vestments is something that we try and cover in the studio, and again, that's all construction techniques there. So I've got a small selection of whitework repairs. So we do quite a lot for wedding veils. So we will clean wedding veils and we will repair them. And then followed on closely by the christening robe. So we often repair christening robes. They tend to go onto the arms. Our babies are a little bit bulkier now, and they tend to split under the arms, or even in the front where they've been kicking their feet through the service. This lovely little dress here, we will use as a practice piece, and you can see how that has broken where the whitework is. So we will go in and support that and mimic what should be there. So sometimes we're really fortunate to be able to do some metal thread embroidery. And this is just a frame that we set up for a show. We attended a high-end interior design show called Decorex. This is to explain what goes on behind all that metal thread embroidery that people see and wonder why it's so expensive. And you can see we're starting with the drawing, the padding, which has got 2 or 3 layers. And then obviously we start with the metal thread embroidery. Now these techniques you would be covering on your gold work and your advanced gold work, but now we're putting it into a different use. Now for something like this, these characters or these animals would be worked separately, and then they are cut out and applied to the base fabric. One of the reasons we do that, if it was a full coat of arms, is that we could have multiple people working on one piece. So something you do have to learn when you come down into the studio is you have to adapt your technique and your process so that that piece of work looks like it's worked by one person, even if it's worked by 2, 3 or 70. So let's move on. You will notice that we've got a piece covered up with a white sheet here. We're very discreet. Our clients expect that of us. So sometimes there's things that we can't show. So that's why that's covered up today. So something we do get a lot of is samplers. We have a real run of them. I think people have been clearing out during the first lockdown. So we've got quite a few going on. Unfortunately, samplers, because of what they're embroidered in, cannot be
wet cleaned. So we dry light surface clean them with a conservation hoover. You can see this one's actually in a good condition. Sometimes we have holes in them, in which case we will support and secure those holes so they don't get any larger. We won't put any missing stitches back on a sampler, so it is purely about conservation. So on a more theme of restoring, we have a piece here. It's a canvas work piece, and it has gone, or it had gone into holes. So what we have to do is reweave the linen before we can even put the stitches back. So if Bryna would like to come in a little closer, you can just see here where we're putting the first row of threads in, and we use a linen or a cotton thread, and we try and match it colour and thickness wise. And then if you come down a little bit further, Bryna, if I pop my finger in here, you can see where we've gone the other way as well. So we've now got a mimic of canvas, and we can start putting our stitches back over the top. This is something that we do quite regularly, and often for pieces of furniture and things like that, where they've been chair seats and they've been sat on and enjoyed. So it is a technique regularly used. So something slightly different, which is going on in the studio, is work for our stitch bank. So we are putting together a stitch bank showing samples and stitch processes of lots, hundreds of stitches. So you can see here we're all set up. So studio staff have actually been stitching. The camera would normally be in place, and it will be taking a photograph every step of the way. So again, as a third year FTP, that could be something that you would be involved in. So if we're going to come past the lovely Jacqueline screen, which is here for inspiration, to this beautiful Victorian cloak. Now this again is a collection piece, and we were able to experiment a little bit on this one to find the best way to conserve it. So it probably is a little bit difficult, but I shall try and point out. So the frill, the fragile frill, you can see around the edge, if I hold it over my fingers, has been encased in a conservation net. So that's a conservation process. And we have done that down the front, around the bottom. And the insides we have done in two different ways. So again, we were experimenting. So we've used net to protect that area. But on the other side, we have used the surface couching that we would use on the curtain that you saw at the start, and maybe on a sampler if it's got a hole in, so you can just see it running down that edge. So that was actually worked on by FTPs as well. So we try and give you a variety of pieces to work on. Now here is something else. Again, we seem to have quite a bit of furniture in at the moment. We do have runs of things. And you can see these are actually finished, but I asked the ladies to leave them out so I could show them to you today. For some reason, all the silk highlights had deteriorated away. The silk obviously will deteriorate quicker than wool, but it was in all the centre of the flowers. So we have gone in and replaced all the centres of the flowers. Now, just at the end of the table, if Bryna wouldn't mind swinging round, you can see where we have been matching the colours. So we have a huge stock, as you can see, you have seen behind me, of wools, but we have a huge stock of other types of threads, of old shades and new shades and all sorts. But if they do need a little bit of toning down, then we can use tea and coffee to do that. It's natural and it works really well. Now just next, and you might have seen Bryna skim over, is 2 bags of dirt. Now we like to show the customers how much dirt actually comes off their pieces when they're hoovered. And so we collect it in a bag and they can see just how much dirt was on that cushion. Just coming around behind you, Bryna. So this is a lovely piece. Unfortunately, I can't show you all, but I just wanted to show you the bottom area. It has got smoke damage on it, so we use special sponges, and you can just see here how we're managing to lift the smoke. This was hidden from the smoke, so you can't quite get it back to that, but you can see how it's much brighter here and it's much darker here. So we're gradually working our way through the embroidery to try and remove that surface of smoke off the top. So I'm hoping that's given you a flavour of the type of work that we do through the studio. As I say, it fluctuates. One day we can have a cap bad, another day we can have a 2-metre panel or a 4-metre quarter frontal. So it can vary from day to day, and we really don't know what's coming in from one day to the next, which is the really exciting part of being down in the commercial studio.
Well, thank you, Anne. Anne's just going to go back to the laptop. And if you have any questions, oh, we have one that's come in here. Excuse me a moment.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm back with you. Yeah. As I say, we're embroiderers, not technical people. So you've got a question for me, Bryna?
This has been extremely interesting. Many thanks.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure that you've all been able to join us today. So certainly, if you do have any further questions about either the studio side or the technical side of the course, please do email in. Bryna's just moving away so that she can take any other questions from you and we don't cause that reverb that we had earlier on. It is, just to reiterate, it's a very full 3 years, and we do give you a huge amount of information, huge amount of skills, but we do set you up for life. It isn't an easy career. You do work hard. Teaching can be evenings, weekends, commissions can be a lot of hours. If it's a rush job, you know, you never know, you might have to work through the night. So it's not an easy career, but it's certainly a career that I've enjoyed. I've been with the school since I was 16. I've had nearly 40 years of a career doing embroidery. So it is possible to make a career out of it. You just have to work hard at it. So I don't know if we have any more questions, Bryna, at all.
Oh, we didn't, but we have.
We do take all ages.
Now.
No age limit. When I came, there was originally many years ago, but no age limit now.
Kathy says, can you tell me if there is a payment program available for the fees, or is it an upfront payment?
No more questions popping up. Okay, so if there's no more questions, then I'd like to thank you for joining us this morning. Oh yeah. Thank you for joining us this morning, and have a lovely rest of the day. And if you've got any other further questions, please contact the Future Tutor programme and we'll answer them the best we can. Thank you very much.